This is the BlackPrint Podcast, where purpose meets power, where culture isn't just celebrated, it's constructed. I'm your host, Dr. VaShawn Smith, educator, leader, dream builder. Every episode, we're unlocking the blueprint to elevate schools, shift systems, and empower leaders who know that change doesn't start at the top, it starts within. So whether you're leading a classroom or a community, tap in, lean in, and let's build the future together. Good morning, and welcome to the BlackPrint Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. VaShawn Smith, school leader, professor, purpose-driven practitioner. Each week, we follow a blueprint called mapping: mindset, approach, people, practices, impact, next steps, and gems, to highlight the stories and strategies about excellence in education. And today's guest is someone who has a profound impact on who I am as a leader myself. Dr. Beth Houf isn't just a name in the national conversation about school leadership. She's a force for culture, authenticity, and connection. As the 2022 NASSP National Principal of the Year and co-author of the book Lead Like a Pirate, which I call the Administrator's Bible, she helped redefine what it means to lead schools that staff and students actually want to be a part of. But beyond the accolades, Dr. Houf is someone I'm honored to call a mentor, a thought partner, and a friend. She embodied what it means to lead with heart, humility, and a fierce purpose, modeling daily that culture isn't something that just happens by accident. It is crafted by design. So today, we're going to dive into the BlackPrint of culture-driven leadership, how vision, voice, and vulnerability create spaces where both kids and teachers and the whole school community can thrive. Good morning, Dr. Houf. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I am very well. Thank you so much for having me part of this. It's truly an honor, and anytime that we can share space and talk education is a great day for sure.
I'm super excited to have you on the BlackPrint. This is actually an episode that I thought about when I first thought about launching this podcast. And now we're actually on episode 10. I feel like I'm, doing big things. We're in double digits now. I'm super excited. I know we had a plan for you to be on a different episode earlier, and, being principals, things happen. So we had to move it back, but I think it's perfect timing. This episode will actually air in November as we start to hit that, winter break season, and people start to talk about how they're going to reset coming in second semester. So I think a lot of the things that we're going to talk about will help principals and leaders reset their school as they come back after their winter break season. So everything happens for a reason. I think this is perfect timing. But before we jump in, I just want to check in with you and know, with all that goes on in the world of being a principal and being a national speaker and things like that, what is the thing that keeps you grounded and focused and connected to just being Beth and not Dr. Houf?
I think the biggest thing is a who, and it's my son. I have a 15-year-old. I also have a 21-year-old. I don't know that he always keeps me grounded. I think he ungrounds me at times, right? That 21-year-old is something, but he's awesome. He's a senior at Mizzou and he's doing great. But my 15-year-old is actually a freshman in my building. So he is such a grounding force for me, because no one's going to tell you more about how the school's running than your own child, right? They're going to let you know if it's going well and if it's not. And watching him, the eyes of culture through him has been so exciting this year. I have had the opportunity to lead my own children, as an elementary principal, a middle school principal, and now high school principal. And, high school, it's a different level. They're becoming like real humans in high school. And that's what I love about being a high school principal is not that they aren't in middle and elementary, but just watching kids become what they want to be in life has been so rewarding. And so for me, again, it's that 15-year-old that tells me, Mom, come on, no, you're not doing that. Mom, yes, you need to put those sparkly pants on, and you need to, and it's just neat. And then it's the little conversations about his life that he's talking about. It grounds me, because I think sometimes we get so serious, as we should be, because our jobs are the most important jobs in the world. But kids aren't always take time to really talk to kids about what they want and what they like and what they, what they need. And more often than not, it's just about, how do you make kids feel safe in school? How do you make school a place kids want to be? And when you take time to listen, man, they tell you so much, for sure. So there you go.
And I think that, having your kids ground you is something. I think every guest that I've had on so far who has children, that's the go-to answer, is how their kids is the thing that keeps them grounded. My best friend, who was on episode 8, Danny, who is the mother to my goddaughter has been her principal, her elementary principal, and she talked about just having that experience and things like that. Then also how sometimes your kids can unground you, like you said, with your 21-year-old. I have a 24-year-old who we have been to the rigmarole. I don't know if a lot of people know, I was a single father since she was 12. So doing that thing and just parenting an adult is totally
A lot.
different. And this show will actually air on November 6th. And this, her latest ungrounding of me, and I don't think I told anybody, so this is like a national release thing. I call her my mini me, and she's getting ready to have my mini me junior. So I'm getting ready to be a grandparent, which is a whole other world that I'm trying to like comprehend. So talking to her, she's like, "You're gonna be a grandpa." I said, "First of all, I'm too young and too far to be called grandpa. I'm gonna be GP." So you call me GP. I'm BGP. Right? So,
I love it. I love it. Not Pawpaw. I was trying to get you to be Pawpaw. You said
no, that sounds old as well. So
GP. I'll work on that.
But yeah, just super excited about that. And just like I said, how our kids are the thing that keeps us going and keeps us motivated to do this work. We were, before we came on here, just talked about how I had homecoming last night, you had homecoming last week, and just the all the things that go along with just the things we have to manage as principals and be in charge of and take care of is just sometimes can be overwhelming. So
very much so.
And one of the things that I just truly appreciate about you since I've been knowing you, and I'm pretty sure at some point we'll get to the story of when we met, but you've always been transparent, from the time I met you at Leadership Academy down in Columbia, when I had to interact with you with OLE down in the forest and the wilderness, which still I'm traumatized by that whole experience.
Headed back there this week, my friend. I'm heading back to lead a group of rabbits or frogs or something out in the woods. So
well, hopefully it's the rabbits, because the rabbits are always top notch. So I'm a rabbit alum. So, but yeah, OLE was an amazing time. But even having a chance to work with you, MOSSP and all those things like that, calling you, having you go through a lot of different things with me in my career from my very first year. You've always been transparent and real. And that's the thing I just love about you. No matter what stage you're on, you're going to be Beth, no matter what. 100%. So, no, we're going to jump into the framework. Like I said, this framework, I don't know, it just came to me one day when I thought about doing the podcast. But it's called mapping, and we're gonna start with the first M, which is all about mindset. So we're gonna start back with the foundation of culture, and we know culture doesn't build itself, and it doesn't sustain itself either. So, what are some mindsets that you carry, or have carried, or had to shift to as you going from a leader, like you said, you've been in elementary, middle school, and now a high school leader in two different communities, that has kept you grounded in making sure your culture is at the foundation of what you do as a leader?
I think the first one is always like, but what if we did? I think a lot of times school culture is, I've had the opportunity to lead buildings that have been 100 years old. I'm currently in a building it's in its 7th year. And it's so easy to get in that mindset of, well, this is the way we've always done it. And here's the deal, when kids are thriving and teachers are thriving, like that's great. Like to say, okay, these parts of that are working, because you don't have to fix everything, right? Because I'm naturally one that says, what parts aren't working? How can we make them better? But I think that part, but what if we did? What if we did say, hey, I know traditionally in high school, this isn't the way we do things, but what if we did do this? Or why don't we this is the way we've always done it in our community, but what if we didn't? So it's finding that mixture of, because you also have to have appropriate levels of change. If you're changing everything too much, you're going to burn not only yourself out, but everyone around you. And again, that's the piece. If you don't have folks supporting the work that you're doing and you go in there, you and I both had times in ebbs and flows in our leadership where we may go in as leading loudly and in front, but if you don't have anybody behind you or beside you or in front of you, then it's not going to work too well. So I think that my first mindset really is like, how can we really come to a problem and get creative with solutions? I think for me, what you notice is like, stay true to those you serve. Life is hard. The world is hard. Our country has hard things going on right now. And it's like, how can you, with each interaction that you have with those you serve, whether it be the students you serve, the custodians you serve, the teachers you serve, the parents you serve, how can you ensure that you're leaving people a little bit better than you found them? And sometimes it's hard, right? Like I know you, same thing, like last night at 10 o'clock as I'm leaving the football field, and I jokingly said my bingo card was full this week. There are things I saw this week I never anticipated seeing. And you still want to make sure you pat a kid on the back and tell them great job in the pep band, or give a kid a hug that maybe had a rough week. And just making sure that you take time to recognize that while data is important, the eyes and minds behind that data are so much more important. So those are my two big things. I also believe deeply that, again, my grounding with my son and my children in general, like I want to build schools that I'm proud to send them to. And so I think that helps me when I'm making decisions, go, hey, would I want someone to treat my child like this? And I know everybody, because most parents, that is want what's best for their kids. That's really, they care. They care deeply, and so they want to know you care as well.
Yeah, so two things I want to kind of tug on a little bit, and the first one you said, and I've heard you say this multiple times, is like, but what if we did? What if we did? And it always takes me back to when I first was in Leadership Academy and going to Columbia. First year, I was a first year principal, trying to figure things out. I had just read Lead Like a Pirate that summer, and I had something that has really redefined my leadership and has been a foundation of my leadership, is hearing Todd Whitaker at that one of those breakout sessions say, climate, if you change today, you change the climate. And if you never change back, you change the culture. And, that's what I constantly go back to as a leader when I'm trying to do something new or do something different, is like, hey, we're going to do this, and we're just never going to go back to what we did before, because this is what's best for kids. And once again, how you have played such an integral part in my, just not my principalship, but just me as growing as a leader. The book that is forthcoming that I'm doing with Dave Bird, like, you were the one that went to them and was like, hey, this is really something you guys to take a look at. And, for them to take me on and to become a part of that family, and like that whole mindset of, but what if we did, is the foundation of that book. How do you build culture? It's like, hey, looking at what is best for kids, leading schools that have been in like my building. I was the fourth principal in 5 years. So there's been a lot of transition and flux and things like that. So how do you come in and set a foundation and say, no, this is the direction we're going, and we continue to go. And now in year 3, we start to see more and more buy-in, because it's like, oh no, this is where we're going. Like, this is not going to change. He's not going anywhere, type of thing. And then the other thing you said that really I want to comment on is, you said, data is important, but like, our school is much more than a data point. I had my CSIP presentation this week to the board, and of course, we got to talk about where we are on our rated data and EOC scores. But at the end, I put up a lot of pictures from our senior sunrise, from homecoming, the homecoming spirit week. Like, our school is more than a data point. It doesn't tell the whole story of how the impact that we're having on the community. I talked about one young lady who graduated last year, we got into a real estate program during her senior year. She graduated, and 3 weeks later became a licensed real estate agent. We had a young man who freshman and sophomore year was not the best year. He had a lot of issues. We got him into a welding program his junior year. He graduated as a certified welder, is now making $60,000 a year as a welder. Yeah, EOCs and all that, we have to do those things, that is, but like, that doesn't tell the whole story of what we do in our buildings and what our kids are capable of doing in that process. So I just wanted to highlight those two things. Well,
Thank you.
Next, let's jump into approach. So you said it before, that culture isn't a one-day event. It's a daily commitment. And when you step into leadership, how did you approach culture work? What was your starting point? What was the thing that you were like, okay, yeah, I need to make sure that this is a priority for me at all times?
Mm-hmm. Well, a couple of different things. I think number one is making sure that you know leadership, right? So you need to be a learner. Everything that I do is intentional. Everything that I do as a person, but specifically leadership wise, and that's because I take time to read. Like I haven't done as much. Now, I'm still a little shell shocked from that doctorate, so I haven't been reading as much as I had before the doctorate. But just taking time to really make sure that you know what best practice sometimes is a cliche, because when you have unlimited resources, it's easier to do the best practice. And when you have unlimited, roadblocks gone. So sometimes it's like using the word best practice, you have to be very careful about that. Evidence-based sometimes is what I go to. But the other thing is just modeling it, right? Modeling what you expect to see in others and what you need to. Like one of the things, and I think you and I've talked about this too, when I walk our halls and see a piece of trash, I pick it up. And when I'm walking with other leaders and they don't do that, I'm like, hey, what did that just model to those around you when you don't take time to pick up a trash, right? Or at lunch, that's what I do. And I try to model that to our AP team. I go around like about 5 minutes before the bell rings, I take that trash can around and start wheeling it. And then, and the kids, it's twofold, right? Part of it is their kids that leave their trash on the tables, and I don't have to watch video and figure that out. But like, how can I be proactive with the approach? And also, how can I show them that no matter what your title is in our building, we're all here to do a job. And yes, I'm going to help wipe tables down at lunch. Yes, I'm going to pick up the trash in the hallways. Yes, I'm going to be in your classrooms giving your teachers feedback, and I'm going to check in on you. Yes, you're going to see me at football, and yes, I'm supervising, but it's not about supervising, right? Dave speaks about this in Teach Like a Pirate, and it framed me so much of like, you're either a swimmer or a lifeguard, and you're either immersed in the work that you're doing, or you're standing back watching. I sometimes get out of my son when he plays football. I'm like, hey, you need to actually go get into play. Don't just watch the play. Come on now. So it's the same thing. How do you get in it? And I think it's natural, especially as we get with older kids in high school, for the adults to kind of step back and separate themselves from the students. And so I think, again, I know I could talk forever about it, but again, it's just making sure you know your craft, making sure you take time to really learn from others, learn from books, learn from other countries, other people. That's why I love being part of the National Principal Association and our state principal association, or our leadership academies. And then also, like, walk the talk. If you expect things, you've got to make sure that you're modeling that every single day with joy.
And something that you said, so I'm going to take a pause right here, because I know there's somebody listening and you're like, oh my gosh, so-and-so needs to hear this. Oh, we were just having this conversation. So I'm going to ask that you go ahead and share this with them, tag them in it, but make sure they get this, because this is a lot of great information. One thing that she said that I really want to highlight in this here is be careful how we use the term best practices, because sometimes what's best practices in one environment is not best practices in another environment. So really, look at that and say, does this fit? Once again, just everything happens for a reason. I've just been in this vein. We had a showcase at our school on Thursday where we were showcasing our real world learning program, which it gives me pride to see people want to come and see what we're doing in our building, because our building sometimes gets a bad rap in the area we're in, because for whatever reason. But originally it was 25 people that were supposed to be coming, so we had a wait list. So we opened it to 50, and then there was another wait list. So it ended up being like 75 people from around the Kansas City metro area, school leaders, district leaders, to come and see our real world learning thing. And one of the things I tell them is, you're going to see some stuff in this building that may not work in your school. You're going to have to tweak it, change it, do something like that. So because it works for us doesn't mean it's going to work the same way for you. So be mindful of that there. The other thing you talked about that I also try to live out is, are you a lifeguard or are you a swimmer? So with that, I want to kind of dig a little bit more into that. As your culture starts to mature and you start to get things going in the way that you do, how do you shape it without micromanage it? How do you know when to guide it and when to sit back and let it breathe on its own?
That's a great question, because I think I've learned a lot. This is year 18 for me being a principal, right? That's not normal for us in our world. And so I've learned through failure of this, because it is easy to get very much in the weeds of the work, right? So I think for me, the way that you have culture, like you have the opportunity to step back and let the culture bloom, right, is number one, recognizing you're going to always have to water it. You're going to always have to fertilize the soil. You're going to always have to have intentional things that are happening. It's not just going to happen on its own. But you instill the culture builders, and that's those around you. And so having a strong leadership team, having a strong student advisory team. One of the things I haven't done as much yet, because this is year 3 for me at the high school, and one of my bosses and mentors has told me too. He's like, you got to make sure you take care of the inside before you try to go out and work with the community as much. And I think you can do both. Two things can be true, but I've really put my energy into the people in the building, and then worked on building relationships with my families and community through all the opportunities we have to interact at our sporting events, or all the different events that we get to have as high school. So I think, to me, it's how do you build leadership teams that are true leadership teams and not rubber stamp committees, right? People know that. And so it's taken 3 years. You're always very kind to me and give me such nice compliments, but like, this work is work that I have done a lot. I'm a consultant for Solution Tree too. So a lot of this stuff is stuff that I should know, right? I know, I speak on it. People bring me in to do in their districts, but when you're doing it with your own folks in your own backyard, sometimes it can be much harder. So really, it's how do you ensure that you have those leadership team processes that work? And it took me 3 years, and we finally, I think, have some magic that it looked different in middle school. Middle school needed something completely different, and elementary school needed something completely different as well. And so our team is a cross section of our school, our leadership team. It's every single department is represented, as well as our support staff. We meet monthly, and they each have, we just got a good old Google spreadsheet, and they share about what's going on in the department, and then they put any concerns, questions, etc. that helps drive our agenda as well as what's going on in our school, building, district, et cetera. But then also we have a focus, we're really looking at assessment practices, because we found that that's an area of potential growth for us as a staff, and some collective efficacy around what should we be doing with assessment that really helps our students know how they're doing with standards. Because a common thing that I hear with high school is we typically do high school the way it was done to us. And so does a B in math mean that what does that really mean? So we're digging into some of that as well, but I can't just drive that on my own. The work that we do with the adult leadership team, we then take also to our student leadership team. And then as we're building initiatives, you've spoken a little bit about career pathways, using some of the examples in your building. We don't have a lot of intentional practices around that yet. And we're noticing with some of our survey data, kids don't always feel like curriculum is relevant. So what's more relevant than knowing that your curriculum automatically aligns with what career pathway you want? So we put together a committee, though, of adults and kids of how do we make this come to life in our school. And again, it's those things. I think a lot of times people forget, especially in high school, why are we not asking students to help write curriculum? Why are we not asking students to be part of our school boards, which we have our student body president serves on our school board, which is amazing too. Like, what are opportunities that we could use student voice that we're not necessarily in? Because once, I think this is my favorite quote from the book is people are less likely to tear down cultures that they help build, right? And so how can you ensure that it's so much more than buy-in? Because I that's one of my other words I can't hardly stand, because we're not selling cars, right? We're not doing that. And I think a lot of times that's what our staff especially equate some leadership practices to, is phony, not real stuff that my principal's coming and trying to do to us and not with us. And so that's a lot, but I could probably write a whole book just on how I feel about building collaborative cultures. But I want to add this asterisk for people that are listening going, okay. But sometimes when I was facilitating a bio team meeting yesterday, and I said, my job is to facilitate. I'm going to be here to guide, but I'm also going to let you know if you try to, like, if there is a practice that is malpractice, I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, we're not doing that. And I think sometimes leaders get worried, whether it be when they're like evaluating a classroom and the kids are completely out of control. No. I'm going to stop the classroom, because if I witness education malpractice, which is maybe kids, cussing at a teacher or whatever, what we promote is what our friend Todd Whitaker says. And so when a teacher or student sees you accepting poor behavior without doing anything about it, that's what your culture becomes. I'm not going to step over a teacher. I'm not going to jump in and tell a teacher what strategy they should have. No. Those are conversations we can have back at the ranch, right? But we're not. When you're in, I think too many leaders oftentimes are like, wait, is that my place? Especially when I was a young leader, a little more seasoned these days. It's okay to lead. And I've said this to you before, and then I'll be quiet for a second. But like, you need to know what space you need to lead from. And sometimes it's in the front. Sometimes you have to be loud and in the front to protect your folks. When I had a situation in the football game last night that was not positive, I had to lead from out front. And then sometimes you need to be side by side. Sometimes it's very collaborative. And there's other times you need to be in the back. No one should see you, hear you, but you need to be back there ready to know you've got their back. And I think that truly great leaders that I've had the opportunity to work alongside and with, they know their spaces and they know when to take time to get in those spaces.
And I love that you highlighted in culture building and in being able to either lead or just sit back and let the culture breathe on its own. It's like, it's going to depend on the team that you put in place. And you started that whole segment out talking about learning from your own examples and failures and making mistakes and like, okay, I won't do that again. And I think I want to highlight that from the standpoint of like, I think when I took over the middle school, I felt like I had to do everything on my own. Like it was my vision and all that. And I learned over time at the middle school. And then when I was changing the way I came into the high school, when I took over the high school, is that, yeah, I can help construct the vision, but it's not my vision. It's not my mission. It's the school, it's the team. So highlighting the team, once again, going back to our real world learning showcase that we did. And in my welcome, I told them, I said, I'm a huge Michigan fan. I bleed maize and blue. Bo Schembechler was one of the greatest coaches of all time. And his thing at Michigan was the team. It's not about the name on the back of the jersey. It's about the team. It's not about Dr. Smith. It's about, I make every chance I get and I stand in front of people, I said, yeah, I'm the one up here talking and this, but this work doesn't happen without Miss Burrow, Mr. Shaw, and Mr. Buckner, my assistant principal team. Like, they're the ones that's in the trenches. You know, for the last 2-3 weeks, I've been gone days recruiting for the district, but like the school still had to happen. And so, you know, my leadership team, we talk about the avid work we're doing in our building. Like, I'm literally just the architect. Like, Miss Burham is the on-site construction manager that's making sure those things happen. So like, the team is what's important, and the people that you surround yourself that you then have to coach, so then they can go out and coach the next, you know, level of that piece of that. Speaking of the team and people, we're going to jump into the next piece of the framework, which is people. And I want to talk about the people from this standpoint, because we know that culture lives in people, not programs. Like, that's where culture truly resides, is in the people. Who are the people that help shape your leadership journey? I know you've helped shape a lot of people's journey, but who are the people that shaped your journey that help you become the Beth Houf that you are as a national principal of the year?
Well, I think really the most important people are the day-to-day people, right? For me, it was, I think about my very first year as a principal, it was the kids in that building, and the teachers in that building, the parents in that building, every interaction and non-interaction. You know, my first year was the first year I lost a student, motorcycle accident, and that's what I think I realized. Like, when people say, well, I've always been real. I mean, that's who I am, no matter if it was 10-year-old Beth or now. But that experience in and of itself really taught me, like, no day is guaranteed. Every interaction you have, like our last interaction, that young lady wasn't super positive. She'd gotten in trouble for something, and she was sassy, probably exactly like I was when I was that age. And then, you know, I didn't, so I like, that was a profound event that happened in my leadership, that I was like, okay, I can't have that happen again. That can't be that way. It doesn't mean you don't hold people accountable, right? You can be positive. I get tired of like the whole war about positivity. I am a positive person. I choose to go about my business in a positive way. It does not mean that I shy away from conflict, because two things can be true. You can be a positive person in how you go about your business and still take care of business, right? So life's too short to be miserable all the time. So going back, like, to be more specific with people, I think, again, my PLN, you are definitely a huge part of that. Like, I think about the people now when I'm struggling with something. And what's great, when you make strong professional, like, connections, you have strong friendship connections, right? So like, whether I'm dealing with a problem, you know, at school, or I'm just needing somebody to cheer me up, it's nice to be able to know that I can call you. I have so many other PLN members with the National Principal Association, so I sit on the board there. There's 19 of us from all walks of leadership life. One of the big missions of our NASSP board is that we represent the amazing diversity of the students and teachers that we serve across the country. So it's so nice. Those are my people too, and they really help me out. I'm blessed. Like, right now, I have an amazing AP team that we're nails. Like, we go, like, we push each other, we help each other out. You know, we always have we've become a little tradition. After every home football game, we go and have food together after, and maybe a beverage afterwards. And, you know, you don't have to be best friends with the people you work with, but that they're your people. Like, they're the people that are going through everything with you every day too. I share pretty vulnerably. You know, I don't have a strong, like, family, like my own family. I have my boys, which are, you know, they're my world, but like, I don't have that traditional, like, okay, where's my mom? My mom is an amazing person, but she has struggled with mental health her whole life. And so I really have found that when you lack some things like that are more traditional, you make up for it with the family you choose. And so I'm blessed to have a family that has chosen me, and I've chosen them, that are not by blood, but by just luckiness, right? And so when you think about, like, just people, like, naming names, right, which I sometimes struggle with, but like, my very first, I had a professor as I was doing my specialist. His name is Dr. Jerry Valentine. He is the co-creator of the instructional practice inventory also, and just a guru of middle school ed. He was one that, he's so real and so knowledgeable and so personable. I'm like, okay, that's what I got to make sure I do. Dr. Beth Whitaker, Todd is a wonderful example too of a person who's mentored me, but his wife, Beth, she is, what an example of grace, knowledge, heart. She's phenomenal. I've had the opportunity to work alongside her and just learn from her. My very first principal mentor, her name was Dr. Vicki Robb. She was another great example of things. And of course, you mentioned Dave Burgess, and I can't not mention him because I never thought I'd be a writer. Again, those that don't know me, I came to this world very humbly. My mom and dad were 14 when they found out they were going to be parents. They never married, and in rural Missouri at that time, that was not a common practice. And so when you look at my pedigree from the beginning, I shouldn't be here, right? I shouldn't be, statistically speaking, for many reasons, I shouldn't be here. And I think that's what grounds me in that. But what if we did? My grandmothers both, that was like, hey, it doesn't matter what, you can do whatever you put your mind to. And but all of those people, the shoulders of giants that I had the opportunity to be a part of their life throughout the years, helped make me who I am today, for sure.
And I appreciate that. I know one of the things that we connected on early on in our connection, you told me a story about your parents, and I think we just resonated on that. And my mom had me when she was 16. I was raised pretty much by my grandmother my entire life. Even last night, I was talking to somebody, and I just happened to, I don't know what we were talking about, but I made the statement of like, I went from the projects to the principalship. They were like, "Oh my God, that should be a book." Like you, like your story is so phenomenal of like the stuff you've overcome to get where you are, but yet you can be so humble and like connect with kids and everything. And I tell them, I say, if I forget what it was like to be that student, then I lose what makes me the principal I am. Like that's the thing that draws me. Like I know what it's like to be that kid that's been forgotten. I know what it's like to be that kid on the football field and not one of your family members is in the stands, where you have to have somebody else walk you across the field on senior night. Last night was probably, if not the top one of the top two experiences in my life, my educational career, is two of my young ladies. One of them, who father has passed away, came and asked would I escort them because they were running for homecoming. Would I escort them out onto the field? And like to have that moment, like where kids look at you and say, "This is a man that I want to stand beside me and represent me in an important moment in my life," and knowing that somebody did that for me. So it's like life comes full circle of like now I'm giving back the things that people did for me. So truly appreciate you sharing those people that have kind of helped. And I definitely want to, before we move on, shout out Dr. Beth Whitaker. I had a chance at the fall conference to talk to her, and somebody I admire her working like that. And for people that you admire to say, "Hey, I love what you're doing. I see what you're doing." I don't think I'm doing great things, but just for them to acknowledge, like, I see the work you're doing, and like, I would love you to come talk to my class, is like, just shows like, okay, what I'm doing does matter. And those are things on those rough days that you hold on to, like, I'm going to get through this, or I'm going to get to the next moment, or things like that. So, speaking of doing things and practices, it's going to be the next part of our framework. I want to kind of really get practical. And I'm going to ask you, can you think of two core practices that build culture that new leaders can lean into as they start their journey into leadership, or even a seasoned leader that's like, "Hey, I need to shift the culture of my building." Mm-hmm. What are two things that they can do right away tomorrow to start to make that shift in their building?
I think the first one is to get out of your office. I think that make sure it's so easy to get sucked in, right? And I'm going to also be real. Your office is there for a reason. You do need to use your office at times, right? But go get in classrooms, go be with kids, go out, talk to folks, get the pulse of what's going on. I also think I was raised up in leadership where it was like, you should never shut your door. You should always, like, all of that paperwork needs to wait till after school. No, it doesn't. It is okay to take an hour of your day and get stuff done, because you also owe it to yourself to get your tail to your home at some point, right? Like, I think we've weaponized some of our educational jobs of saying, "Hey, if you're not putting in 16 hours at work, then you're not a good leader." No. You can get very efficient with the other pieces of your work. There's also only certain things you can do as a building principal or, assistant principal, etc. Recognizing that, like, my secretary helps me with things that she can do and she does well. And I think that's the other piece too, is how can you really leverage practices that recognizing, how do you have, your first responders. I don't need to deal with everything transportation, right? I need to know about the things, but I have a person in charge of transportation. I have a person in charge of the custodial concerns. And then that way, I'm involved, but how can you ensure that you're immersed in that deep work of leadership? I think that's one for sure. I think the other, like, just the daily practice. I had one and I forgot it. I don't know how I did that, but I think the other, like, I guess, to be real, because I didn't realize this really until later in my principal career, is you got to prioritize you as well. I think I'm mentoring a brand new principal this year, and she is barely above water because she's trying to do everything. And then she also has like disciplinary situations she has to handle and the other stuff too. It's like, how can you make sure you don't have to do everything, right? You don't have to do everything. And you just made a comment that really struck me too, is like, you don't think you're doing great things. And I think as leaders, like when great things are happening, it's because you're doing what you need to do to make you don't most people that are doing great things don't go out to do great things, right? They want to make great impact. They want to make sure that their kids are, being leveraged to the next level. They want to make sure they build a culture where the adults feel honored and respected and, like motivated to be the best that they can be. And I think that's what you just said was so true though, is like, I think people, when they go about like, man, I just want to be the best principal ever. I just want to be great. I think sometimes that's when it can seem like a toxic culture or toxic positivity, or, I said earlier, you got to water and fertilize, right? The only cultures that you don't have to do that are those fake plants, right? Which I have a few because I kill some of my other ones. But like, how can you ensure that you don't have that rubber plant culture where it may look good, but it sure doesn't smell right? So it's like, how do you ensure you don't do that? So I just took you on a ride on that one. I don't know that I think we might have got like away from it, but it made me think of a practice that you talked about that is so important.
No, I think you hit the question right on the head. I mean, the one, get out of your office. I mean, that is key. I'm a firm believer that visibility.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons I changed over my current AP staff is that was the one thing that they struggled with. They were not visible, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but they just weren't visible, and that's one thing I know we're getting ready to have our mid-year culture data come out where our teachers take a kind of just give us an assessment. And I know visibility is something that's going to skyrocket because
Mm-hmm.
my APs are never in their office. We
Right.
all do lunch duty. Like, we're all at
Yep.
events. So
100%.
I know that's going to skyrocket there. And then the second thing you said is like, you don't have to do it all. Like, you have a team for a reason, lean on those people
Mm-hmm.
and let them do the things they're going to do. I want to kind of follow this up with this. And I've had some phenomenal guests. And like I said, when I first started this podcast back in May, or had the idea and then launched it in June, I had no idea who my guest list was going to be. Like, every month I reach out to people like, hey, this will be good. So I mean, my first episode with James Ulrich, who serves on the board with you, was phenomenal. I've asked him this
My
question. Ms.
bestie.
Dacus, who is the middle school principal that took over the middle school that I was at, that has taken it to a whole other heights that I never thought it would ever get to, that I knew I couldn't do, but she was the right person for the next season of that school's life. I've asked her this question. Dr. Houston, who's assistant leader down in North Carolina, huge in the Abbott work as well. My bestie, Miss Blackstock, who's a principal, asked him this question, and so I'm going to ask it to you. How do you build culture where you protect staff morale but still push them to excellence? And in essence, really, this is what the question is asking. Where does grace meet accountability at?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. And it's one that I feel like it's been a push and pull over the years for me, because I have to remember they're not me, right? And I think that's a big leadership. Let people choose to go into leadership typically because, I mean, there's a certain pattern that we have, a certain kind of blueprint, blackprint that we have, right? We're driven, we're very change oriented, we're solution oriented. We're typically transformational because we really want to get in and innovate and iterate. And not all the people that like, not all teachers have that same trajectory, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to not want, like, to want to really be a great history teacher, right? And have no aspiration to necessarily leave that role. And so I think it's really recognizing who we are, and that not everybody has that same just that same mold that we have, and that's okay. Really taking time to get to know your people that you serve. um, I think that it's how do you, and I read one of my favorite books, you and I've talked about that, is Radical Candor. And in that book they talk a lot about the superstars and the rock stars. And like, superstars love like employees, because this is more of a just leadership book in general. Superstar employees want to do everything and they want to do it well. Rock star employees want to be really good at one thing, right? They really want, I think of my, like, now in general, like, there's like student council, right? They just want to take student council and make it to the next level. And then your superstars are like, I want to be on this committee, I want to be on this committee, I want to be on this committee. but you tick them off when you don't do the right, like whenever you try to take, sorry, it's lightning and thundering now. When you try to take, and serve those people in different ways, you're going to tick them off. And then the number one thing that I feel like ticks off everybody is when you permit poor behavior from other adults. And I think that's how you handle when it's not going well, right? I took over. So one of the things that I've kind of done differently is I have a caseload of students. I have letters of the alphabet that I do discipline with, and I do their tier 3 and tier 2 groups with their counselor, and usually in high schools the size of ours, that's the head principal does not do that. For me, it's very intentional because that way I know, number one, I have the pulse of the building. That's when you don't have that same, like I don't have, not being in that, like moving into this district and into this school, I didn't know the kids, and that's like such an easy way to be able to get to know kids. And then I also have shifted from who do I observe, who do I supervise. And so this year I have the English department, and I love it because I love English in general, but I had to realize, like, I went in and I'm one that I don't leave feedback, like written feedback for the teacher until we sit down and talk about it, because I don't want it to be interpreted in any way but positive. I always leave a little positive note and say, hey, thank you so much. What I noticed this, and, going back to the anchors of appreciation, but I don't leave. And what I had forgotten is that the lady that one of my APs that did before, she always left the rubric with all of the suggestions and all the stuff. So they thought, like, they freaked out. They're like, oh my gosh, I had a really bad, horrible. And I was like, okay, you got to make the invisible visible. So I think that's the other piece too, is how do you do that? How do you, again, it's not chameleon leadership where you're changing yourself. It's really recognizing how do you treat people the way they want to be treated. And to do that, just to wrap it up, because I know this is like a big, huge question, is making sure that you celebrate the things that are going well in your building, making sure you hold people accountable when they're not doing what they need to be doing. And then making sure too that everybody, like, I don't know, this time of the year is when everyone's ready to just lose it. We're exhausted. The first fall seasons they're starting to wrap up, but we supervise all the time, and there's always, and the behaviors, October behaviors ramp up. October and February, for some reason, doesn't matter what level, they're always the biggest months of discipline referrals. So it's also, how can you take some things off people's plates, and how can you have a little fun? And I think that the thing that some principals do is they think that the way to change culture is to, like, give some more jeans passes, get the food truck to come in. And those are great. Like, my staff that I have right now, they love jeans. And I hate jeans. They're uncomfortable. They're tight. Like, so that's not my love language, but it's really taking time to get to know what your staff likes. And if you just do that type of kind of climate-y type stuff, right? Goodie tables, etc., you're going to have, like, right now, it lands well. But when you do that without that lack of trust, respect, care, it's going to seem like a slap in the face. And I've seen that. I've done it before. I've had it where I thought things were great, and it's like, oh, wow, you have enough money to go buy t-shirts for us, but we don't have this, or I don't get this, or, oh, the custodians, and again, don't forget the other, like, sometimes we're all educators, no matter what our role is. And so I had a custodian come up one time. He's like, we just got a 10%, like a 10-cent raise, and you just spent all this money on, like, swag and whatever. He's like, I'd really rather just have another $20 a month than to get a t-shirt or whatever. So I think it's just taking time to realize that without that strong, positive culture, some of your, like, acts of kindness don't land. And again, the way that I know that is by working with my team, like having that strong leadership team. They let you know. The kids do too. We started doing bingo, right? I know you've probably seen that on the medias, but with this phone ban that we have in Missouri, lunch I was worried about. So we do bingo every other Friday, and kids love it. I mean, they love it. I wasn't sure how it was going to land, but they love it, and they run it now. I don't even run it. I'm not the bingo caller. I don't have to do any of that. They take care of all of it. So just little examples of how that was a climate thing to help because of the phones, and now it's become part of our culture. The bingo is the noun, but the verb is, how do we have a little fun together? And instead of focusing on the negative part of the phone ban with the perception of the children, I'm actually pretty happy with it. I wasn't a big proponent at first, and then I was like, whoa, they're talking to each other. Wow, we have less issues with certain things. So anyways.
And the phone ban in Missouri is a real thing. So if you're a Missouri leader out there listening to this, go get some games. So one of the things that we did was we got a game cart.
Mhm.
And then we have everything on there. Connect Four, Mancala, Uno, Phase 10. There's this game. I always mess it up. It's like taco, catfish, whatever.
Yes,
And they go crazy
they
for it.
do.
Now, the first week, everybody wanted to play me in Man Collie, but now I'm undefeated. So nobody wants to get this work anymore.
I
I can't
love
get nobody to play
Collie.
Man Collie
Oh,
with me.
I
So I
love
done ran
that.
everybody off. So,
Okay,
but
we
we
got
are
to
going to
see yours.
incorporate Bingo Fridays.
Yeah.
I'm out next week, but I'm bringing Bingo Friday to Grandview High
Okay.
School. So
Awesome.
GHS, get ready for Bingo Friday. I love that idea because I have a
Awesome.
whole bunch of snacks I can get rid of in my office as well. so, uh, so our next part of the framework is impact, and I'm gonna switch this up a little bit in how I ask this question. And I don't think I've ever asked to any of the previous 8 guests this way. I want you to finish this sentence for me. And it kind of goes with that, what you said was sometimes we don't think we're doing great things. We're just doing things. They just end up hit landing. And sometimes they don't land. And people don't hear about those though. But when it's all said and done, Dr. Beth Houf wants her leadership legacy to be what?
I think my leadership legacy, what I'm hoping, and I said this a little bit, is um, a couple different things. I think really it's about leaving things better than I found it, right? But even bigger so is that all kids. I think you made mention of this as well. Is I know what it feels like to be a kid that people didn't necessarily wouldn't bet on, right? And so it's like, how can we redefine education to where all truly means all, and all doesn't mean the same, but it means that we design spaces and places for our learners, for our leaders, for our educators that lead to happy is sometimes like, but productive and excited. Our North Star for our high school is how do we ensure that 100% of our students graduate on time and enter a field in which they're passionate about? Because again, when we talk about if we want to get big macro level, society is shaped by, that those types of things. And when we have kids doing things they want to do when they graduate, that's going to help our economy grow. It's going to help our, the government pieces go. How can we ensure that, that we're doing those things? And so I think that's for me. And I get when I talk to kids a lot, and when I get little notes from them and things like that, that the common thread is that I care. And I think that's the piece. Like, there's a lot of things we don't have control over, right? We don't have control. Some heartbreaking things going on with some of my kids right now at school, and what they need from me is to know I care. Even if I can't always do something about all the things that are horrible, like that I care, and they've always got a safe space with me, whether they're a history teacher, whether or not they're a senior. Um, I think that's the biggest thing too. And I also believe, and I know that we share this. I want my kids to be proud of the work that I've done, because my own children have had to sacrifice their mom. The one of my Dawson always is like, "Mom, you have more pictures of other people's kids on your phone than me." And so I'm like, "Well, you're probably not wrong on that one," because I try to capture all those things. But I think it's too is like I overhear the young one, with his friends, and they know I care, and he's proud that I'm his mom. And people are like, "Oh, does he hide from you at school?" I'm like, "No, he comes up as a 15-year-old big athletic boy and gives me a hug, as does his friends, because I care." But then I turn around and give kids that, it's not just the athletes, or it's not just the band kids, or it's not just I love them all. And I think that um, there's a lot of space for that, a lot of space for love in the job that we do. So
So we're getting close to the end. We have 2 more pieces of the framework to hit upon. And this next one, you said before, and just reiterate it again, because what I found out as I've done this now in episode 10,
mhm.
that there's a lot of rementioning of a lot of things because the people are speaking from their passion and who they are. So it's like, I'm not trying to look for the perfect answer. I'm just going to tell you who I am. But the next piece of the framework is next steps. And I'm going to put it in this context. There's a leader right now listening who is tired. They really want to fix the culture of their building, but don't even know where to start at. If you had to pick one step they can do Monday morning, what would it be to shift the atmosphere of their building?
Well, I think number one thing is, like, if you're not, go stand at the front door and greet kids as they come in. Go to wherever your staff may be coming in and greet them. just say good morning. That if you're not already doing that, just that's the best part of my day. And when my days don't start well, it's because of that. And I started that a little bit as a more supervisory, like a being like really trying to supervise lifeguard. And then now it's like I look into the eyes of those I serve and I'm like, okay, this kiddo's having a rough day. Let me help him here. Or, and it's just the fist bumps as they come in and, being a cheerleader for them. And you have to be like, you have to tone it down sometimes, right? I can't be too loud or they get like, especially for high schoolers, because they're still asleep when they come to school. But like, just taking time to do that. If you already are doing that, like take time to do 2 positives in the morning, shoot 2 positive emails to people that you care about, shoot 2 positive texts. Nobody that I've ever met is like, please, please, please appreciate me less. No. So take time to do that and do that with students as well. Like just figure out one thing to appreciate. And to me, whether it's a tangible fist bump as they come in, whether it's a note or card, those things fill your bucket just as much as they do others.
I appreciate that. So we have made it to the end of the framework, and this is how the thing goes. The last one is a gem. It's your chance to do your little gem drop.
Okay.
And really, the gem drop is just one truth or principle about your leadership that you hold close, no matter the season that you're going through. So I'm going to give you the full screen, and this is your, hey, if you didn't hear anything in this interview, I want you to hear this and take this away. So the screen is all yours.
Awesome. Well, I think you've said this, and I've said it in my own way: is be you. Yes, I wrote a book called Lead Like a Pirate, and not when you read it, you get it. It's not about leading like me. It's about really leaning in and being your authentic self. I think that's the part that we lose sometimes because we think we have to, especially when you're coming in as a baby principal. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to, I have to know all the things and do all the things and really lean into your, I'm all about strengths-based leadership and how can you lead like you? And, I think for me, and I think a common thread between any leader is leading with heart, be real. You don't have to be, you don't have to, when I became a principal, it was all about like high heels and pantyhose and suits and all that. And I'm like, wait, this is not me. This is not elementary. Like I can't get on the floor. And, I had the first experience of having a kid try to run into the street and I had a dress on and the whole neighborhood saw way more Miss Houf than they needed to. And so it's like, how can you like lead in your own way? I mean, my sneaker game is pretty strong. I don't know why I didn't lean into that earlier and realize that you can connect with kids on so many different levels when you are your authentic self. Share your struggles with your students. My kids know you said projects of principalship, and I think I'm trailer parked to teacher's lounge. I don't know what we could. I can have a chapter in your book, but yeah, I mean, growing up literally in the trailer park. I mean that, I think that's what drove me to be in my seat is that I never saw people like me as a principal. It was always so I try to really define that in a different way. And I think being you, being authentic, being real, don't ever try to be someone else, because you won't, in my mind, if you're always trying to be somebody else, you're never going to be the greatness that you can be. And then I take pieces of a lot of other people. Nothing that I do is like, to me, like it's something that I've learned from someone else. The game card, like I'm all about like, okay, now I gotta go find some cards and figure out how to get Hi Ho Cheerio and all these other, like now, because just listening to you talk about that, I think that's one of those things. But be you and don't be so hard. Don't be too hard on yourself.
Well, Dr. Houf, I am truly appreciative for you doing this episode for me. I consider myself a Dr. Beth Houf disciple, and just have been blessed in my career field to run into someone like you and have you be a part of my journey. I can't thank you enough, not just for this episode, but just for everything that you have done for me as a leader in my 7 years of principalship. You are definitely someone that is a guiding light. And when I'm having those rough days, I'm just going to be honest. Like I tell myself, what would Beth do in this situation? So I'm gonna get my "What Would Beth Do" bracelet and start selling those. I'm pretty sure I'll make a lot of money there. So, but the thing, but you didn't just talk about culture. You really gave us the BlackPrint on how to live it out on a daily basis. So I appreciate that there. And if I was to highlight everything that we talked about today and everything that you gave us, It's this, that you don't have to be perfect to lead powerfully, but you do have to be present. You have to be present to do that. Culture is shaped every single day by the stories that we tell, the grace we give, and the voices that we amplify in our school culture and community. Dr. Houf, thank you again. Followers, listeners, please go out there. And if you don't have a copy of Lead Like a Pirate, trust me, it will change your leadership perspective. I have probably given out more than 50 copies of that book in my time as a leader. So this is what I'm going to do. For the first 5 people to DM me on X at Dr. V Smith, I'm going to purchase the book for you if you don't have it and send it directly to your house. So the first 5 to DM me after listening to this episode, please DM me and I'll get you a copy of that book. Trust me, it will change the way you lead your building.
You are too kind. You're too kind. You always fill my bucket for sure.
And people, I know it looked a little clunky, a little wonky today. The show didn't go as smoothly as you know it usually does. And this is why. We're actually recording on October the 18th, even though the show is going to air November the 6th. Today is homecoming for us. Our homecoming day is today. And you all know that Whitney Smith, my amazing producer, is a senior in my building, and she's getting ready for homecoming. So she didn't have the chance to produce. So Dr. Smith had to do 2 double duties, and it didn't go smoothly, which shows you why every time I make sure I shout out Whitney Smith, my amazing producer. In her absence, I want to make sure I give her flowers because she is a phenomenal young lady. So shout out to you, Whitney. I hope you're back for the next episode so we can get this go a little bit smoother, but I made it do what it do. I still, made it happen. So please make sure you go out and follow us on X at Dr. V Smith and the BlackPrint PC. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review on YouTube, and share this with a listener or a leader who needs to hear these words. Until next time, this is the BlackPrint, where dreams become reality and culture is everything. Thank you for joining us on the BlackPrint Podcast, where dreams become reality and culture is everything. Subscribe, rate, and share with someone leading with purpose. Stay connected to the BlackPrint. We're building more than a brand, we're building legacy. Follow us on X at BlackPrint PC and Dr. V Smith. This show is powered by Dreams Made Real, where dreams become culture. When I had the red and black lumberjack with the hat to match.